Every real estate purchase contract in Arizona must meet specific legal requirements to be considered valid and enforceable. Building upon the foundation of employment agreements and broker compensation from the previous module, this section moves from the broker-client relationship to the contract that binds the buyer and seller in a real estate transaction. The purchase contract represents the heart of the transaction, the written document that outlines what is being sold, at what price, and under what terms. Like employment agreements, it must comply with Arizona law, the statute of frauds, and the Arizona Constitution to protect the interests of all parties involved. A valid purchase contract must meet several core elements: competent parties, mutual consent, lawful purpose, valuable consideration, and, most relevant to this lesson, a definite property description. The property identification serves as the cornerstone of the contract. Without a clear and accurate description of what is being sold, there is no enforceable agreement. Arizona law, under the statute of frauds, requires that all contracts for the sale of real property be in writing and signed by the party to be charged. The written document must include a sufficient legal description of the property to allow it to be identified with certainty. The property identification requirement is often misunderstood. Many people believe that simply writing the street address is enough. While an address can be acceptable in most residential transactions where there is only one parcel, the courts have clarified that the description must allow the property to be located without ambiguity. For instance, in a rural sale or land transaction, where multiple parcels or lots are involved, the street address alone may not be sufficient. The contract should include either the legal description from the recorded plat, the assessor's parcel number, or a detailed reference to a recorded document, such as a deed or subdivision map. Consider an example. A buyer and seller sign a contract for the sale of 123 Main Street, Phoenix. Later, it is discovered that there are two parcels on Main Street under the same mailing address, one with a home and another vacant lot. If the contract fails to specify which parcel is being sold, it may be deemed void for uncertainty. In contrast, if the contract describes the property as Lot 4, Block 2, Green Valley Subdivision, according to the plat recorded in Book 21 of Maps, page 33, Gila County Records, the identification is clear, specific, and legally sufficient. Another example is when a seller is selling 5 acres of a large lot of 10 acres. This has to be clearly written in the contract that there is no mistake as to what part of the 10 acres is being sold. The Arizona Association of Realtors, RAAR, Residential Resale Real Estate Purchase Contract provides an excellent example of compliance. Section 1 of the form requires that the property be identified by both its street address and its legal description. This dual reference satisfies the requirement for clarity and certainty under the statute of frauds. Furthermore, Commissioner's Rule R428-1101 mandates that licensees exercise reasonable care to ensure all material information in a transaction, including the property description, is accurate. Brokers and agents must review the public record and confirm that the description in the purchase contract matches the one found on the deed or title report. Property identification is also tied to the doctrine of mutual consent. Both parties must agree on the exact subject matter of the contract. If there is confusion or disagreement about which property is being conveyed, mutual consent does not exist, and the contract cannot be enforced. In Hill v. Jones, Ares or Appienter, 1986, although the case primarily addressed disclosure issues, it reinforced the principle that mutual agreement and accurate representation of property details are essential for valid contracts. The requirement for written property identification also protects against fraud. Under ARS, paragraph 44-101, oral agreements to sell land are unenforceable, preventing fraudulent claims based on verbal promises. It states, No action shall be brought in any court in the following cases, unless the promise or agreement upon which the action is brought, or some memorandum thereof, is in writing and signed by the party to be charged, or by some person by him thereunto lawfully authorized. This protection is especially important in real estate, where the value of property is significant and disputes can lead to costly litigation. Written contracts ensure transparency, accountability, and a clear record of the parties' intentions. For example, a buyer verbally agrees to purchase a vacant parcel from a seller and gives a deposit check, but the agreement is never written down. Later, the seller sells the same property to another buyer. When the first buyer sues for performance, the court dismisses the case because there was no written contract containing a legal description of the property. The buyer's only potential claim would be for the return of the deposit, not for ownership of the land. This demonstrates how the written description requirement safeguards both buyers and sellers from misunderstandings and fraud. The legal identification of the property also influences title transfer and recording. A deed cannot be recorded without a proper legal description. The county recorder's office relies on that description to index and preserve ownership history. Thus, the description in the purchase contract must match the one in the deed to ensure a smooth transfer of title and to prevent future disputes. In summary, property identification is more than a technical detail. It is the foundation of a valid contract. Without it, there is no meeting of the minds, no enforceable promise, and no clear title to transfer. Arizona's laws and rules are designed to ensure that every real estate contract clearly defines the subject property to protect the integrity of the transaction and the public interest. Discussion. Why must every real estate contract contain a clear property description? Answer. Because the statute of frauds requires written clarity to ensure that both parties are contracting for the same property and that the agreement can be legally enforced. Can a contract be enforced if the property description is vague or incomplete? Answer. No, the contract may be declared void for uncertainty because the courts cannot determine what property the parties intended to convey. Why is it important for licensees to verify the legal description of the property before writing a contract? Answer. Because under the commissioner's rules, licensees must exercise reasonable care and accuracy when preparing contracts. Any mistake in the property description could result in legal liability or an unenforceable agreement. Review summary. A valid real estate purchase contract in Arizona requires a clear and specific property identification to satisfy the statute of frauds and ensure enforceability. The description must be detailed enough to locate the property without ambiguity, whether through a legal description, parcel number, or recorded reference. Brokers and agents have a duty under the commissioner's rules to verify accuracy and ensure mutual consent between the buyer and seller. Without a proper written description, a contract cannot be enforced, a deed cannot be recorded, and ownership cannot legally transfer. The clarity of the property. Supporting sources and key case law, Arizona Revised Statutes. Bar 44-1016, Statute of Frauds, Commissioner's Rule. R428-1101. Hill vs. Jones, Ayers Apps 1986, emphasized mutual consent and material accuracy in property representation. Arizona Association of Realtors, Residential Resale Real Estate Purchase Contract. Section 1, Property Description ultimately protects all parties and preserves the integrity of Arizona's real estate system.